Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for hopping on the Fagan Realty Group YouTube channel. We appreciate you being on here. And if you like what you hear and you see and it's informative to you and helps you, then please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. What we're going to be talking about today is one of my favorite subjects, rivalry cities. It happens state to state, but in state is even better. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between Charlotte, North Carolina and Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's go ahead and dive in. Jim, why don't you start us off by telling us what you think?
Well, if you look back at the history between Raleigh and Charlotte, in the past, most of the political power was consolidated in Raleigh and east of the state. And there was a period of time, I think it's largely died down, but there was a period of time where there was a lot of animosity between Raleigh and Charlotte. I think some of that was brought on by the Charlotte leaders at the time. And so, and I think Raleigh's had a little bit of an inferiority complex as it relates to Charlotte. And so one of the ways that we've seen that kind of play out is the road systems. If you look at the road system in Raleigh as an example, they have had two, not just one, but two complete belt lines around their city years ahead of what Charlotte has had. And yet, until recently, Charlotte, well, actually, and still today, the population of Charlotte, as it relates to just Raleigh proper, is significantly larger. Thus, we should have had a better, particularly a better Beltline situation than Raleigh.
Jim, I think you bring up a really good point about a little bit of that past animosity between the two cities. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a Charlottean and maybe it's as simple as that, but I don't love Raleigh. I don't know whether it's because it's most of the government is all there, so that just kind of gives it an interesting tone to the city. But I think more than that, we went to Wake Forest, and Duke, UNC, and NC State are all in the triad up there, and we're Deacon fans, so I'm not the biggest fan of Raleigh in that way. And that's interesting what you say about the roads and how much larger Charlotte is, and how much more we need that infrastructure here. But Raleigh has gotten ahead of us on that. I think another interesting difference between the two cities is the personalities of kind of working class people. I think Charlotte tends to be more professional services and banking and management and things of that nature. In Raleigh, you have not only the government piece that I mentioned earlier because it's the state capital, but you also have a large influx of more education because of the institutions I mentioned earlier that are large universities and influential universities, not only in North Carolina, but throughout the country. And so it's a big like research triangle as well as associated with those. And so you've got a little bit of tech and med tech, if you will, healthcare and all that kind of good stuff, whereas Charlotte is, you know, a larger management, Fortune 500 type of city and all those sorts of good things.
All right, Jordan, I got to stop you right there. Now, you live in Charlotte, but I'm not really sure you qualify as a Charlottean yet. I mean, let's face it, you spent more years living in Memphis, your hometown, than you have Charlotte.
Hold on, I've lived here almost a decade. How long do I need to live here until I can claim the Charlotte thing?
Well, it's kind of a nebulous thing, but you know, we Charlotte natives are kind of an endangered species, and we're sort of protective of that identity.
Okay, that's a fair rebuttal. Charlotteans, probably original OGs, are definitely endangered. Speaking of which, I'm taking Conrad tonight to Jurassic Park Live at Spectrum Center. Not related to this video, but just basically that. I think good statistic for everybody on here. This is a couple years old. I remember reading it though. 70% of the people that live in Charlotte now, today, as residents, are not originally from the Carolinas. So forget about the city, Carolinas in general. So you're not wrong.
One of the other really unique differences, and I hit on this earlier, is that the population of what we think of as Raleigh, or more specifically the Triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, it's way more spread out geographically than Charlotte is. It kind of reminds me of Atlanta. With Atlanta, the population of Atlanta is actually smaller than the population of Charlotte, but you have these really large outlying communities like Marietta and Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, just to name a few. Raleigh's the same way. A good deal of its population is not in the cities of Durham and Raleigh, but in places like Apex, Fuquay, Varina, Cary, where Beth and I used to live. Contrast that to Charlotte. The bulk of the Metro Charlotte's population is actually in the city of Charlotte. We do have some outlying communities with some size, like Weddington, the Lake Norman area, Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, Waxhaw, Marvin, but they pale in comparison to the sizes of the similar communities in the Triangle. So what this can mean in the Triangle, despite the good road system that they have, is that commute times can be significantly longer than what we see in the Charlotte area.
You bring up a good point about the traffic and commute times. I wonder, like, what do you think about Charlotte traffic? You've lived here your entire life, basically. What's your 2 cents on where traffic is today in Charlotte, where it has been? I mean, do you think it's bad? I mean, I'm just for the audience.
Well, first of all, I hear all the time people complaining about the traffic in Charlotte, and this may sound a little crass, but what I think, and sometimes what I say to them if I know them well enough, is if you don't like the traffic in Charlotte, go move somewhere else. I mean, it's part of living in a larger city, and so if you're attracted to having lots of things to do, like we have in Charlotte, then you are going to have some traffic. But the reality is that if you know your way around, you can still get most any place except during rush hour in about 20 minutes. I think how it's changed is that if you go back probably, let's just say 30 years, maybe 40 years, the bulk of people worked in uptown. The bulk of like the professionals did, and they were usually traveling south, whether it was just into the Myers Park Eastover area or going even further south. But now the Lake Norman area has really developed, so you have people at the end of the day going north. You have still a lot of people going south. You have folks going kind of roughly southwest down to Ballantyne. The Fort Mill area, even Rock Hill, Gastonia, those areas have really boomed population-wise. So as the area has grown, I think the traffic patterns have somewhat expanded and diversified.
Jim, let me ask you this. This is a fun question to ask. What do you think Raleigh does better than Charlotte as a city as a whole?
Well, I hit on one thing, and that's the road system, right? I think they do have a much better road system than Charlotte. Also, and I don't know whether the people in the Raleigh area / Triangle were purposeful about this, but I think they do have a more diversified economy. Anytime you've got government and higher education in your community, that provides a measure of consistency, right? I mean, those areas do not vacillate much based upon the economy, but they've also got a large tech industry and healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and other things, and I think Charlotte is diversified better, but historically Raleigh, in my opinion, has had a more diversified economy. So Jordan, what do you think Charlotte does better than Raleigh?
Jim, I'm glad that you asked, and man, I told you earlier I don't like Raleigh, so this is a long list. I'm not exactly sure where to start. One of the most obvious ones is sports, just in terms of offerings. I know Charlotte sports are not at the apex of athletic achievement these days, but we've got a bunch of major league franchises here in the city. Raleigh really only has one with the hockey team, the Hurricanes. And let's see, one of the things that I love about Charlotte that I think a lot of cities, not just Raleigh, do not have is so many unique pockets in the city. You could just call them neighborhoods, I suppose, but so many unique different neighborhoods that you could find yourself in that you could really just kind of make your life in. Whether you're a South Ender, whether you're strictly, hey, I love Elizabeth or Chantilly and stay over that way, or say you're down further south and you live in Stonehaven or something, and your kid goes to one of those private schools right there, and you can kind of make your life all right there. You can go to South Park. You can go north of the city, up towards Cornelius and Davidson. I mean, I think that alone is something that's really unique about the city that I love and think it makes it one of the best cities in the nation, not just better than Raleigh. And then the other one is you had spoken about the diversity of the economy and jobs and such in Raleigh, which is true. But I think just by pure size and opportunity, Charlotte is better for young people that are moving to a city simply based on opportunity. Right? There is more opportunity based on the Fortune 500 companies and other companies here in Charlotte than I think that there are ultimately in Raleigh, and that's why young people move here in droves. So I could go on and on. I will say too, I think that the food scene has improved so drastically in the last decade in Charlotte that I would put it up against a lot of cities in the southeast not named Charleston in terms of overall food scene. So I think Charlotte's got a lot going for it, and yeah, I'm not biased at all. Hey everybody, thank you again for joining us today on our Charlotte versus Raleigh episode with Fagan Realty Group on our channel here. Again, just a reminder to please like and subscribe if you're able to get some good information out of this. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to look in the comment section for our emails. Love to see you and talk to you. Thanks so much. Bye.